The Aurora plummeted through Titanica's thick, turbulent atmosphere like a stone thrown into a storm. Alarms wailed in unison as the ship's system strained against the gravity well of this colossal planet. Captain Elise Carter gripped the armrests of her command chair, her knuckles white. "Status report," she shouted over the cacophony. "Engines failing." Lieutenant Garcia called out from the engineering console. "We're running on fumes. Gravity's too strong, we're going down." Elise's stomach churned as she glanced at the viewport. The horizon loomed impossibly large, stretching far beyond anything she'd seen. This wasn't Earth or any Earth-like planet humanity had ever encountered. Titanica was a world on an incomprehensible scale. Its towering mountain ranges and sprawling oceans dwarfed anything humanity had ever known. "Brace for impact," Elise ordered. The Aurora struck the ground with a deafening crash, skidding across a vast plain of strange luminous grass-like vegetation. Sparks flew as the ship's hull groaned under the strain. When the world finally stopped shaking, Elise unclenched her fists and surveyed the wreckage. "We're alive," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The crew, battered but breathing, began assessing the damage. The Aurora was a mangled wreck, its comms array was shattered, and its engines were beyond repair. Stranded on a planet this alien and massive, survival seemed a distant hope. Elise activated her wrist communicator. "All hands report to the bridge. We need a plan." As the crew gathered, Dr. Lenore Voss, the team's xenobiologist, approached the captain, her face pale. "Captain, you might want to see this," she said, pointing to the viewport. Elise turned and froze. Outside, towering above the wreckage, stood a being so massive that it blocked out the horizon. Its eyes, each the size of a house, glowed with an otherworldly light as it studied the wreckage of the Aurora. The alien, no, the giant, was covered in a crystalline, armor-like exoskeleton that refracted the planet's strange blue sunlight. "It's a living skyscraper," Garcia whispered, his voice trembling. The creature bent down, its enormous hand hovering over the Aurora. Elise's instincts screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. She clenched her jaw and stood her ground. "Stay calm," she said firmly. "We don't know its intentions." The giant's hand descended, but it didn't crush the ship as Elise feared. Instead, it plucked a piece of debris, a twisted metal panel, from the ground, examining it with what seemed like curiosity. "Captain, we're like ants to this thing," Voss said. "It doesn't see us as a threat. It might not even see us as intelligent." "That's about to change," Elise said. Garcia grabbed the emergency flare pack. "Let's show it we're more than insects." Within moments, the crew had arranged a series of flares in a spiral formation, lighting them in sequence. The giant paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as it watched the display. Then, it did something remarkable. It mimicked the spiral pattern with a glowing line of energy traced along its forearm. "It's intelligent," Voss breathed. "And it's trying to communicate." Before they could process what this meant, the ground began to shake violently. A second giant emerged from beyond the horizon, its steps causing tremors that rattled the Aurora. This one was even larger, with a more menacing appearance, its jagged exoskeleton glinting like obsidian. The first giant turned to face the newcomer, raising its massive arms in what appeared to be a defensive gesture. The two beings exchanged guttural, thunderous sounds that echoed across the plain. "What's happening?" Garcia asked, panic edging his voice. "They're arguing," Voss said, awe and terror mingling in her tone. "Over us." The larger giant reached down, its immense hand aiming straight for the ship. Elise shouted for her crew to scatter, but before the hand could make contact, the first giant intervened. It shoved the larger one back, sending a shockwave through the ground that knocked the humans off their feet. Elise scrambled to her knees, her heart pounding. "It's protecting us," she realized. The confrontation ended as suddenly as it began. The larger giant retreated, its thunderous footsteps fading into the distance. The first giant crouched near the ship again, lowering its massive head to their level. "It's studying us," Voss whispered. Elise met the giant's gaze, feeling an odd mixture of fear and gratitude. She raised her hand in a gesture of greeting, unsure if it would understand. To her surprise, the giant raised one of its fingers, a gesture that seemed to mirror her own. "It's trying to understand us," Elise said, a spark of hope igniting within her. The giant stood and gestured for the humans to follow, motioning toward the horizon where an enormous crystalline city shimmered in the distance. "It wants us to go with it," Voss said. Elise took a deep breath. "Pack what you can carry," she ordered. "We've just made first contact and it's with a species that could crush us without a second thought." If we're going to survive on this planet, we need to learn everything we can about them, and fast. As the crew prepared to follow the giant into the unknown, Elise couldn't shake the enormity of their situation. Titanica was a world beyond comprehension, a place where even survival was a question of perspective. How do humans survive on a planet this big? She murmured to herself. The answer she knew lay ahead. The crystalline city shimmered like a dream in the distance, its massive spires piercing Titanica's sky. Walking alongside their colossal guide, whom the crew had tentatively named Ytharan, the humans felt impossibly small. Each of Ytharan's strides covered what would take them hours to traverse. The crew scrambled to keep up, using their limited supply of exosuits to endure the crushing gravity. Keep moving, Captain Elise Carter urged. She glanced back to ensure her team was managing the trek. Exhaustion was visible on their faces, but no one complained. Survival left little room for weakness. The terrain was as alien as it was dangerous. Towering vegetation waved in slow, deliberate motions, their leaves like massive sails. Strange insect-like creatures the size of trucks skittered in the distance, their movements sending ripples through the ground. Every shadow felt like a threat. We're walking through an ecosystem built on a scale we can barely comprehend, Dr. Lenore Voss murmured, scanning the surroundings with her portable scanner. Even the air density here is enough to kill us without our suits. Elise adjusted her communicator. Focus on survival first. The science can wait. After hours of relentless travel, Ytharan stopped and gestured for the humans to enter a cavern at the base of a towering crystalline structure. The cavern, massive by human standards, appeared to be a storage area for the Vorthok. Enormous tools, some resembling spires and others like vast bowls, lined the walls. Ytharan placed the humans gently on a ledge near the cavern's entrance, as though acknowledging their need for safety. Is this shelter? Garcia asked, setting down his equipment. Looks like it, Elise said. But we can't rely on handouts forever. We need to secure resources and plan for long-term survival. Ytharan crouched before them, emitting low, rhythmic sounds. The tones were unintelligible, but the patterns intrigued Dr. Voss. It's communication, she said, excitement breaking through her fatigue. He's trying to teach us. Elise stepped forward. Then let's learn. If we can understand their language, we might have a chance to prove we're more than just curiosities. While Voss and a few others worked on deciphering Ytharan's sounds, the rest of the team explored the cavern. The scale of everything inside was overwhelming. Walls soared hundreds of feet overhead, and crystalline formations pulsed faintly with energy. Garcia discovered a vein of glowing ore embedded in the cavern wall. This could be the key to powering our equipment, he said, chipping off a small piece for analysis. That's the first good news we've had, Elise replied. Suddenly the ground shook violently. The team braced as a massive shadow loomed at the cavern entrance. Another Vorthok, larger and more angular than Ytharan, stomped inside. Its eyes glowed an ominous red. It doesn't look friendly, Garcia muttered. Ytharan stood, raising his arms in a defensive posture. The two giants exchanged thunderous sounds, their voices vibrating through the walls. Elise's team scrambled for cover, watching as Ytharan positioned himself between them and the intruder. He's protecting us, Elise said. As the confrontation unfolded, Elise's mind raced. Survival on Titanica wasn't just about adapting to the planet, it was about navigating the politics of these massive beings. We have to prove ourselves, she said, gripping her communicator tightly. If Ytharan believes we're worth protecting, maybe others will too. But first we have to survive this. The confrontation between Ytharan and the hostile Vorthok left the humans shaken but unharmed. After an intense standoff of guttural roars and gestured warnings, the larger Vorthok retreated, its glowing red eyes dimming as it disappeared into the horizon. Elise Carter and her team remained huddled in the cavern, the enormity of their situation sinking in deeper with each passing moment. We can't keep relying on Ytharan to protect us, Elise said, breaking the silence. She looked at her crew, their faces pale and weary. If these giants see us as a nuisance, we won't last long here. We need to show them that we're worth keeping alive. Dr. Lenore Voss nodded, her portable device in hand. We've made progress on deciphering Ytharan's language. It's more symbolic than phonetic, patterns of tones and gestures. If we can replicate them, we might be able to communicate. That's step one, Elise agreed. But step two is proving our value. Garcia, any luck with the ore you found? Lieutenant Garcia held up a glowing shard of the crystalline ore. It's rich in a compound we've never seen before, potentially an endless energy source. If we can demonstrate how we use it, the Vorthok might see us as partners rather than pests. Elise nodded. We'll build something that showcases what humanity can do. Voss, keep working on the language. Garcia, start designing a small power generator using the ore. The rest of you fortify our position. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. The first message. As the crew worked tirelessly, Ytharan watched with a mix of curiosity and amusement. The giant seemed intrigued by their frantic activity, occasionally mimicking their movements with his massive hands. When Voss finally managed to replicate a simple tonal sequence using a makeshift transmitter, Ytharan's reaction was immediate. The giant's glowing eyes brightened as he emitted a similar sequence of tones, adding a new layer to the pattern. Voss grinned. He's responding. We're starting to understand each other. The breakthrough gave the crew hope, but it wasn't long before their efforts attracted unwanted attention. Attack on the settlement. A rogue faction of Vorthok, drawn by the humans' growing activity, descended on the cavern. These giants were unlike Ytharan. Sleek and predatory, their crystalline exoskeletons jagged and dark. They saw the humans not as partners or even pests but as a threat. "They're after our tech," Garcia yelled as the ground quaked beneath the giant's footsteps. Elise barked orders. "Voss, keep the transmitter safe. Garcia, get that generator running. Everyone else, defensive positions." The crew used their ingenuity to fight back. Portable EMP devices, crafted from salvaged Aurora components, disrupted the giant's crystalline structures, forcing them to retreat temporarily. Ytharan joined the fray, his massive frame shielding the humans as he roared at the attackers, driving them back with sheer force. When the dust settled, the cavern was in ruins, but the humans had survived. The turning point. Ytharan knelt before the battered crew, emitting a mournful tone. He gestured at the destruction around them, then at himself. It was clear. He felt responsible for bringing danger to them. Elise stepped forward, her voice firm. "We're not giving up, Ytharan. We'll rebuild. But we need your help." Using the transmitter, Voss conveyed a message in the simplest terms they could manage. "We create. We protect. We survive." Ytharan's glowing eyes softened. He raised a massive finger and traced a spiral in the air, a symbol of understanding. Elise turned to her crew. "This is how we prove ourselves. We don't just survive, we show them what humanity is capable of. Let's get to work." As the crew began repairs, Elise's resolve hardened. The rogue faction's attack had made one thing clear. Survival wasn't just about adapting to Titanica, it was about earning a place in its vast, dangerous ecosystem. The crew's battered encampment buzzed with renewed energy. Using the ore they'd mined and salvaged parts from the Aurora, they had managed to construct a prototype generator. Its soft, rhythmic hum provided not only power but a beacon of hope. Captain Elise Carter stood by the glowing machine, her mind racing. They had a plan, but it was audacious. "We're broadcasting this signal to the Vorthok," Elise said, addressing her crew. "It'll show them what we can create, but it's also going to attract attention, good and bad. We need to be ready." Dr. Lenore Voss adjusted the makeshift transmitter linked to the generator. "Ytharan's been helping us refine their language patterns. If we can sync this signal to their tonal spectrum, it might reach not just their leaders, but their entire population." Lieutenant Garcia, overseeing the generator, shook his head. "And if the wrong Vorthok hear it first? We could be inviting another attack." Elise nodded. "That's the risk we're taking. But survival isn't enough. If we don't convince the Vorthok we're worth keeping alive, this planet will destroy us." The storm approaches. Ytharan, their ever-watchful protector, crouched nearby, his luminous eyes tracking the humans' preparations. He had become more than an ally. He was a symbol of the fragile bridge they were building between species. Suddenly the ground trembled. Elise turned toward the horizon, where storm clouds churned with violent energy. Jagged bolts of ionized lightning illuminated a massive approaching figure. It was one of the elders, the most ancient and powerful of the Vorthok, flanked by several smaller, hostile giants. "They're not coming to talk," Garcia muttered, his face pale. Elise's jaw tightened. "Voss, get that signal out now. If we don't act fast, we're done." Voss activated the transmitter, sending a pulse of light and sound rippling into the atmosphere. The tones echoed, carrying a message of creativity, cooperation, and survival. Ytharan stepped forward, raising his massive arms in what appeared to be a gesture of defiance and protection. A desperate defense. The elders stopped just short of the encampment. Their glowing eyes scanned the humans, the generator, and Ytharan. One of them emitted a deep, resonant tone, a command laced with menace. Ytharan responded with a defiant roar, planting himself firmly between the humans and the elders. The elders moved to attack. Elise shouted, defensive positions. By Voss time to boost the signal, the crew used every tool at their disposal, EMP bursts, sonic disruptors and improvised traps, to slow the advancing giants. Ytharan fought with unmatched ferocity, his massive limbs swinging in arcs that sent shockwaves through the ground. But it wasn't enough. The elders closed in, their size and power overwhelming. The beacon of hope. In the chaos, Voss cried out, "The signal, it's ready. Do it." Elise ordered. Voss activated the final sequence, and the generator emitted a brilliant cascade of light and sound. The spiraling tones and visuals captured Earth's history, humanity's resilience, and their unyielding drive to survive. The display filled the sky, visible for miles. The effect was immediate. The elders paused, their glowing eyes narrowing as they processed the signal. The message resonated across Titanica, reaching not only the hostile Vorthok but others scattered across the vast planet. Ytharan added his voice to the broadcast, a deep, harmonious tone that rippled with understanding. The combined message of human ingenuity and Vorthok support shifted the elders' stance. They lowered their arms and retreated, their tones no longer menacing but contemplative. The fragile alliance. As silence fell over the encampment, Elise stood beside Ytharan, staring at the retreating giants. "We're not safe yet, but this is a start," she said. The broadcast had drawn attention far beyond what they expected. More Vorthok began to arrive, not as enemies but as curious observers. Among them were those willing to listen, to learn, and perhaps to ally. Elise turned to her crew, her voice steady. "We've shown them who we are. Now we show them what we can do. If we're going to survive here, it's not just about proving ourselves, it's about building something greater." As the generator's light continued to pulse, illuminating the alien landscape, humanity's tiny spark of hope began to grow. They were small, fragile, and outmatched, but they had one undeniable strength: the ability to create connections no matter how impossible they seemed.